Hello, Reefers, and welcome back to Tidepool Aquatics. So I actually wanted to make this video. I am joined here with my drama queen of a bird. Uh, so this video is basically talking about, obviously, the title, which is the mistake that almost lost me all my corals in this tank. Which is not just one mistake; it's a combination of many mistakes that have been building up, and it's when I get to it, it'll make sense. But I also want to use this video to go to my next video, which is going to be a bit more about what beginners need to focus on, because this mistake was very much a not so much a beginner mistake necessarily, but something that beginners should take into account, and will have more success if they understand what's going on. Let's start off with this tank. A month or so ago, this is an SBS dominant tank, so it's 99% SBS, Montiporas, Acroporas, there's a few Seriatopora, there's Montipora digitata, Capricornus, myriad of other corals. There's also some LPS. There's a torch in here. There used to be a lot of hammers, but I decided to move them on and go for more SBS and stuff, because the LPS does okay in this tank, but it doesn't look as nice as it could because the higher flow and higher light. So this tank, about a month ago, I noticed polyp extension had reduced. My polyp extension during the night had reduced. Things previously, the week just beforehand, were growing just exponentially. They're like corals meant to. They were fantastic. I've from frags to colonies. My frags are now colonies. I can show you a few of those. But what ended up happening is I saw the polyp extension on things like Millipora, which usually always have their polyps out, and they're often referred to as a shaggy coral. They started closing up completely. Now, I had a pufferfish in this tank, and I was under the assumption that he was probably annoying them, which he has eaten coral in the past and picked on my SBS. However, it healed and grew so well that it never was an issue. Why it would be an issue now, I have no idea. But that's what I thought. So we took him out. The original plan was to remove him anyway. But even after removing him, nothing improved. Stuff still died. And a week or two down the line, colonies started to disappear. I had a colony of Acropora tortuosa, which was my first ever Acropora. I have sold it around town where I live, and some people have frags of it. Hopefully, I hope to get some off them again one day. But that frag has survived a tank crash, and that frag has survived being in terrible conditions, and it had grown to a full colony, but it just started stripping. It died completely in, I would say, 2 days. Now that makes no sense to me why that coral would die, but the more sensitive corals I have, like my Acan echinata, didn't. That's not to say that my Acan echinata didn't also go. I do not have an Acan echinata anymore. That had grown from a frag, tiny, but overnight, unfortunately, died. So something was going on. I had no idea. So I started doing more rigorous testing. I had gotten very, very complacent of my testing. For the longest time, I was dosing Calquasser with 3-part magnesium, calcium, alkalinity, and things were perfectly stable. My alkalinity was at 9.5 to 10, almost all day, every day. pH perfect, and calcium and magnesium fairly perfect. However, what happened was, as coral grew more and more, alkalinity started to drop. Now, I knew that would happen, so I did compensate for that. But it's the next day. I got distracted. had some people come over, and I totally forgot where I'm up to, so I'm just going to continue this where I think we're up to. Explaining the issue of this tank. Basically what happened is I got complacent and things built up on each other. So I wouldn't fill up the Kalkwasser reservoir that I have for maybe a day after it ran out, and that's just obviously not good. But I did it enough times that it doesn't really matter. Because my Kalkwasser is not my only form of alkalinity dosing, it didn't really affect too much. So that wasn't a problem. What was a problem is that my pH would then swing quite wildly. I run at around 8.4 all day, every day, except at night where it dips down to 8.2. So what ended up happening is at night I would dip down to 7.9, way lower than I previously was. And I don't run a refugium in this tank, simple fact that I don't have the space in the sump, and also I don't need to. It is always running at almost zero nutrients, which is another issue. The zero nutrients wasn't too bad. Things were colored perfectly and how I wanted them. I did get a bit of a dino bloom multiple times, but nothing that I couldn't handle. Just sucking it off the rock and then going on. But what ended up happening is me not filling my Kalkwasser, the skimmer sometimes, like it would get clogged or something, I would just turn off the skimmer, it wasn't necessary. I would run out of, I would run out of filter roll mat and not change it for a bit. These things got done, and I knew that they had to be done, but it didn't happen quick enough. And that's simply just complacency. I was so sure that this tank was running so well, and it was, that I thought nothing could go wrong. The final straw for this tank was a heat wave we got, and also going away for holiday, where there wasn't the careful attention of me, who just understands the tank, to always look at it. And stuff started dying from there. When I came back, things were either dead or not great. Polyp extension was almost non-existent. Certain colonies were just not the right color. They were browned out, and overall just did not look to standard. And I tried doing water changes to fix that. I tried doing things to try and get it back to how it was, which inadvertently creates instability. So you end up just getting yourself into a loop. And unfortunately, the damage that had already been done has been done. So I had to move on from there. So eventually also my dosing line in one of my pumps had popped off. Unfortunately, was my alkalinity one. Eventually my magnesium one popped off as well, and I'm not sure why it happened, but I think I might have knocked it. I think it was my fault. But the alkalinity line popped off, and it was not dosing alkalinity into the tank anymore. So when my Kalkwasser would run out, and I'm being a bit lazy, now my alkalinity is dropping from 9.5 to 6. And then back up again when I remember it. Basically, instability and complacency. So, what's this tank now? This tank is now getting on to recovery. This tank is... I'm seeing polyp extension. Some of my millies have more polyp extension than I've ever seen. I do have more nitrates and phosphates in the tank, finally. And things are still going through color changes, but I expect it to be okay within a month or so. So, where does that leave us for my advice? My advice is simple. This hobby is not hard, but it can kick you in the butt if you don't keep up to date on certain things. Filling up my Kalkwasser and making sure my skimmer works takes 5 minutes at max. But I didn't do it out of complacency, laziness. I mean, I'm running a whole shop, But without this tank, I'm no longer a hobbyist. I'm a store owner, and I don't believe in that. My advice to you is to fix your basics and stay in the basics until your tank is running well, and then go for the next thing. fixing the basics was the whole point, the whole premise of fixing this tank. It was getting alkalinity stable again, making sure my magnesium and calcium were okay, and my phosphates and nitrates were okay. My flow was okay. My lighting was okay. All the basics. And I stopped any kind of trace element stuff that wasn't manganese, because manganese is for gonnies, and I have some gonnies in here. But anything complicated, I just went back to the basics, and that is how I fixed my tank. So the next video I'll talk about more just new reefers, how to control the basics, and how to have a successful tank and not run into the issue that I just did. Anyway, I am going to go either make that video or do some more work in the coral farm. Thank you for watching Tidepool Aquatics, and happy reefing!